Hey everybody, welcome to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And in this video, this is part 2 of our look at the CLA MixHub by Waves. If you have not seen part 1 yet, click the link in the description box below. Go check out part 1 where we didn't really do any sound examples like we're going to do here. We just kind of walked through the plugin. I told you what I liked, what I didn't like, and just kind of gave you the overview on how to use the plugin in the most effective way. In part 2, we're actually going to listen to this thing on a mix and turn it on and off. This won't be nearly as long of a video, and I'll explain why in a minute. But before we get to that, if you like what you see in this video, hit that subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. Also, make sure you go out to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and get your 5 free mixing training courses. That's my gift to you for visiting HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. And if you want to learn the craft of mixing from a beginners and an intermediates perspective, head on over to MixingMadeEasy.net. It's a really cool mixing training site that I have there, and we have a ton of members, a great community of people. And if you really want to get better at the craft of mixing, MixingMadeEasy.net is for you. So now we're looking at here the Waves CLA MixHub here. And again, I'm not going to walk you through the whole plugin. Go watch part 1 if you want to see that. Now, what I did for here for part 2, one of the things that I explained in part 1 is I wasn't doing a turning all the CLA MixHubs on and off the entire session because of the way the gain structure is and the way you gain stage the project. It wouldn't really give you a true A-B comparison because you'd have such a volume difference, and let me explain. So let me close this for a second. So what I told you in part 1 was when this session was delivered to me, recorded pretty hot. And what I had originally is all of the faders in the DAW in Studio One here set to 0 dB unity, and then in the CLA MixHub under the bucket view on the output section, I would use these faders to mix the project, and that's how the plugin was intended, and that's great and it works fine. But the problem is, or not even the problem, but just a thing to be aware of is what's different about this plugin as opposed to a typical plugin. If you're doing the mixing inside of the CLA MixHub plugin, and your faders are all at different levels to get yourself a nice balance, then what happens is if you try to turn off all of the plugins across the entire session, because remember, the CLA MixHub is intended to be on every track in your session. That's the whole point of it, right? Go watch part 1. But if you then turn off all the plugins, and if all your faders in your DAW are set to unity, right, what's going to happen is you're going to turn off all the plugins, and now you're not listening to anything but the raw tracks in your DAW, and what happens is the volume is going to be a massive jump because all your faders are set to unity and they're not going to be balanced. Why? Because the CLA MixHub is the first insert, the plugin, prior to the output fader. Does that make sense? So in other words, if I open up this plugin and you look at this fader, if you mix from this fader, okay, and let's say you turn down this first channel, which happens to be the kick-in mic, now what's going to happen is you're going to turn it down here, but then you're boosting it back up here because it's prior to before the fader on the actual channel in the DAW. So what happens is when you turn off this plugin, what volume drop that you did here in the output section is now going to be boosted back up because we have the fader set to unity. I hope that makes sense. Believe me, try it. You'll see what I mean. So the way to kind of do this as an example so you guys can hear the A-B comparison to some degree is put all of the output faders in the MixHub at 0 dB, and then use my faders in Studio One like I normally would have, and just not use the output section of the MixHub. Just use the input section, which again, I set everything to 0 dB on the way in, and I did all of the clip gain and all of the gain staging here in Studio One. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. It's the only way to really do this, where you could turn the plugins on and off all at once and get about the same volume level to level match the plugin. Now, it's not perfect, as you'll hear in a minute, but it's as close as I can get to give you an idea of what the CLA MixHub sounds like, okay? So by using the input, everything at 0 dB, the line into the plugin, and the line out, the fader output at 0, and just using the EQ in the dynamic section like we talked about in part 1 of this video, and just mix how I normally would. Now when I turn the plugins on and off, it kind of gives you an idea of what the plugin is doing to the overall mix. And I hope that makes sense. Again, it's not a perfect A-B apples to apples comparison because this plugin's a little unique in the way the input and the output structure works because it's before the fader in your DAW. Take that what you will, okay? So anyway, let me just play back. Now, I've gone ahead and I've kind of done a quick mix on this thing with all of the CLA MixHub, and I did all my balancing here in the DAW, as you can see. So here's kind of what it sounds like. So here we go. Here's a little loop of music with all the plugins on. Here we go. Okay, that's with the plugins. Now, if I play that same piece of music and I turn all the plugins off, here's what we have. Now, again, it's not a true level match. It's not a true, it's going to be, it's going to be quite a bit off, but let me just show you what I mean. So here's with no plugins at all, and then I'll click it in and you'll hear how everything kind of comes to life and everything just sounds a lot more rich, like it would with an SSL channel strip. Here we go. Okay, so obviously there's a massive difference in the sound and then some of the level and the balancing. Again, I just did this very quickly for this video, but I want to reiterate again that really the way to use this plugin, in my mind, and again, there are no rules when we do this stuff, right? But this is the way I would typically use this plugin. I would set all of my faders in my DAW to unity, okay? I would do, and again, if assuming it's not recorded way too hot or way too conservative, that's recorded pretty well. Any gain management I have to do on the way into the plugin, I would probably do right here in the edit screen using clip gain, just by highlighting the event and turning it up or down. That's how I would probably do it to get it kind of close. And then you can always fine tune it. Let me move this over here so we can see it. You can always fine tune it here on the input side with your line in or your mic in, or you can go to your channel view and you can do it here as well. And I would level match it. I would get it, gain structured properly, do my gain staging. And then what I would do is I would mix with my output faders here in the plugin. Okay, that's how I originally did it. But just again, keep in mind that if you do that and you turn them all on and off to try to hear, if things getting better or worse across the whole mix or even across a small group of channels, you're going to have this massive boost in volume because now all your output faders in Studio One or whatever DAW you're using happen to be at 0 dB. But this is the way the plugin is intended. Again, do you have to shut them all on and off and A/B everything? You don't have to. You just, is it getting better or is it getting worse? Are you having is this plugin making your mix sound better? That's what really matters. It really doesn't matter per se that if you turn them all on and off to hear the cumulative effect of all the plugins. I know we do that with a lot of plugins, but in this particular case, it's really not, you really can't do it in a proper way. Okay, so that is, again, some of the things that you have to be aware of and what we kind of did here. So as you can hear, it gives it a nice, more rich and a much more punchy sound, which you would expect from an SSL channel strip console. And quickly, one more time, I'll play back and then I'll tell you, first I'll tell you again some of the key features that I really like about the plugin and some of the features that I wish were not, were maybe done a little differently or not included or can't be included that are kind of a little bit of a bummer. And then we'll listen to this one more time and then we'll end this video. So now you have an idea of what the plugin sounds like. So once again, the things that I love about it, that I really think is great. Number one, you get the inclusion here of the two compressors, the desk of the SSL console, and then the Bluey, which is the Chris Lord Alges 1176 Blue Stripe, and you just click the type button, it lights up. And they do sound vastly different from each other, and they in a good way. So you have two really different choices of flavors of compressors. That's awesome. The second thing I really like over here is in the output meter, you can have a gain reduction. So you can look at the gain reduction on the needle as opposed to the gain reduction on the little LEDs over here, which are on the desk. Again, it's not a showstopper if it didn't have this, but I think that's very, very helpful, at least for me. I like using the gain reduction here. It's easier to see. It could be a little bit more accurate here as well. The other thing I really like is I like the fact that the compressor section can be done with parallel compression. You have a wet-dry mix. That's really cool as well. I don't believe that's on the original desk. I could be wrong about that. I don't think Chris Lord Algae's desk has that, but maybe it does. I'm not really sure. I like that as well. So those are three things that I really like. Oh, and the fourth thing I like is that you can add another Waves plugin here in the insert section, which again, we talked about all of this in part one, but just in case you didn't watch part one yet, that is really cool too, that you can add another Waves plugin simply by just picking from the plugin list. And if you wanted to do that and do something like, oh, I don't know, dynamics, and you wanted to put an LA3A, now we have an LA3A here, which is really cool. You can see it here. And then you can also then, my fourth thing I really like about the plugin is that you could go ahead and you can rearrange the modules, whoops, just by taking them and dragging them, which is pretty cool, okay? That's a pretty interesting thing and something that's really cool. And to right click it, you can just remove the plugin by right clicking in there, and now you have no insert. And I guess again, the fifth thing in thinking about it a little bit more, I like the bucket view. I like the fact that you have all 8 channels or all 64 channels in one plugin window, and you don't need to keep opening and closing plugin windows. That can be very handy, especially if you have 2 separate monitors. That's very cool. So those are the 5 things that I kind of like about it, and that you can mix right here inside the plugin, which is great. What are the things I don't like about it? Some of the things I don't like about it or wish that it had is, one, there is no mute solo, meaning that if I have the overhead open here, this is the overhead instance of this plugin, there's no way to mute or solo up that overhead and have it tie into the DAW. You know what I mean? You have to move this out of the way. If it's in the way, you have to go to the track and solo it up. Again, not a showstopper, but just something to keep in mind, especially if you have a smaller screen, that this thing could get in the way and you'll find yourself maybe opening and closing the plugin more than you may think just to do things like solo. Number 2 is if you're going to use these on every track in your session and you have 36, 40 tracks in your session like we do here, it could be pretty CPU intensive. We talked about that in part 1. So if you have a lowered spec computer, that could be a problem if you try to use the plugin the way it was truly intended. Okay, that's kind of the second thing that I'm not really crazy about. The third thing is that all the track names in each instant have to be manually named. In other words, when you put this on first on your track, it comes up as the track name is none. It doesn't tie back to the track in your DAW when you name your track in your DAW. Again, I don't know that that could have been done. Just a thing to think about. There's some more setup time that's involved here. Now you can do things with templates and stuff and you can maybe combat that, but just another thing to be aware of. So those are 3 little nuisances that I'm not, that could be a little bit better, or just something to think about if you're going to purchase this plugin. But overall, like I said in part 1, I think it's a great sounding plugin. If you don't have, and you heard it and you'll hear it again in a second, if you don't have any SSL plugins, and you're looking for that SSL sound, and you're looking to have a setup where it is more like working on a real analog console, and that's the whole point of the bucket view, then I think this thing is really cool. Okay, it takes a little getting used to, especially like what we talked about with the gain staging, but it does work, okay, and it is kind of cool. So that's really cool. If you have other SSL plugins like the original SSL channel strip by Waves or like the Universal Audio SSL, do you need this? And again, I said you don't really need it. Does it sound way better than any one of those? No, it sounds a little different. It sounds great, but those other plugins sound great as well. So if you already have the SSL by Waves and you already have the Universal Audio SSL or a Plugin Alliance SSL or whoever else makes those are the 3 main ones that I'm aware of. Is this going to sound much different? No, it's not. It's going to sound a little different. Do you need to have it? You don't need to have it. Is it worth $69 on sale? Yeah, if you want to play around with it and you like the whole concept of the bucket view and only having one plugin window open, it is kind of cool and it's something to think about. Okay, so that is our look here at the CLA MixHub. Again, let me play it back one more time here so you can kind of hear it, and I'll turn all the plugins on and off so you can hear what that kind of does again, and then we'll just end this video. So here we go. So here's with all the MixHubs played, inactive, and then I'll take it away just by clicking this button here and you'll see everything go away. So here we go. so there you go. So thanks once again for taking a look at the CLA MixHub by Waves. Great plugin. You may want to check it out again. You could demo it on their website, on Waves' website. You can demo all their plugins for free for I think 7 or 14 days. If you want to check it out, that is the way to check it out. Again, leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought about this video. And lastly, go out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com, get your 5 free mixing training courses, and also go out to mixingmadeeasy.net and check out what I have going on over there. And until the next video, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com and mixingmadeeasy.net, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much and take care.